These are the top 10 games of 2020. Now, while obviously 2020 was definitely a year to absolutely put in the trash bin and forget about until it starts to stink, there were some really good positive things that happened. There were some great seasons of shows that managed to squeak on by and get out before either the big pandemic hit everything and shut everything down. There were some great seasons that came out, toward the end of the year, when it came to TV shows and stuff, and there were some okay movies as well, but really the thing that was the creme de la creme of entertainment last year was video games. There were a lot of great video games, and obviously with each tail end of a console generation, there seems to be like the A game, because obviously, studios know what kind of tech they're working with, they have an idea of what kind of games they want to make, the stories they want to tell, and it all just comes together beautifully. I mean, 2012, 2013, man, those were phenomenal years for games. I mean, 2012 in particular. And if you ever want to know why, I actually made a video last year based on it, actually. My top 10 best years of, the last decade, actually ranking, each year, based on not only the top game, but also the games that were there too competing with it. And I think it was 2015 and 2012 were like the top two spaces, and for good reason. So anyways, let's get right into this list. I've been excited to talk about this. Let's talk about some good games, shall we?
Number 10.
So number 10 actually was a little bit of a toss-up for me. Not only because there was two other games that could have flopped into here, but there was also just the fact that I just didn't see it as highly. And maybe this is the nostalgia talking, but I just felt like while there was a lot of great moves pushed forward with the game, I didn't feel like, there was enough evolution, and I'll explain here in just a second. My number 10 game on this list is actually Final Fantasy VII Remake. Now, overall, it's a great game. It's a beautiful game. If you go and just based on the graphics and the gameplay alone, that solid frame rate that it mostly has, it's a 10 out of 10. However, there were just some outdated, just icky things that just made you remember of older, RPG type games, these open world type games, they sucks. The lack of really good side quests. There was one or two here and there, but most of them were forgettable and trash bin at best. The fact that, there's just so much running, it's just to pad the stats. Yeah, it was 45, 50 hours for the game. 10 of it was just running back and forth. It was just, they added a lot of depth to the characters. They added a lot of, of good stuff for the most part overall. And they actually had a little bit of liberty to kind of tweak some stuff here and there and to kind of change stuff, but mostly kept a lot of the stuff that made Final Fantasy VII, the original game, kept it intact here. And that's why it's still a really good game. Almost a great game, honestly. With whatever entries they do next, hopefully they'll be able to clean a little bit of that up. If you're going to add some things to it to try and pad it, at least make it where it's good and not boring. And it'll actually bump this game up on the list, I promise you.
Number 9.
Number 9 is Crash Bandicoot 4. It's About Time. Now, this was actually a game that did kind of sneak up on the list a little bit. I actually got to play it a bit more, about a month and a half ago, beginning of January, to kind of see if it really etched itself onto the list, and I feel like it really did. They surprisingly had not Vicarious Visions, who actually is now going to be apparently working on a bunch of stuff for freaking Activision when it comes to remasters and remakes of older games. I'm sure they're fucking excited about that. But no, while they did the remake of Crash Bandicoot, 4 years ago now? It was actually Toys for Bob, the ones who did the remake for Spyro's trilogy, who actually got the green light to make this game. And I felt like overall, considering the fact that they didn't even have the Crash Bandicoot franchise, and remade those games, did a fantastic job of kind of cleaning up some of the issues that I had with the original remake trilogy. Added some new, just little ripples and stuff like that, Now, granted, if they do wind up making a Crash Bandicoot 5, or whoever wants to make a Crash Bandicoot 5, hopefully they'll get even more freedom to kind of just continue putting their fingerprint on it. Obviously, it's still a Crash Bandicoot game, but with, the added masks and abilities and obviously the huge roster of characters to play as, I feel like they did a really great job with this game. And like I said, the mechanics felt like something from more like this decade rather than mechanics being pulled from, 1999 into 2017 when it came out. So I applaud them for that, and that's why it's on this list. Honestly, if you haven't got an opportunity to check it out, I think you should. I think it's on both consoles, if I do remember straight, and it's definitely worth your time.
NumberEight.
Now, NumberEight, this one made me a bit sad. Now, granted, I have been a lot more fair and a lot more kind to the game overall, as I actually genuinely did like it. I love the themes, and I love the story as a whole. Now, I know I'm going to get flagged for that, but whoever, wants to give me flack can kiss my fucking ass. The games that I'm going to put on this list, whether it makes you mad or not, I don't give a shit. But NumberEight is The Last of Us Part 2. I like The Last of Us Part 2. Now, I didn't like some of the dark feelings it made me feel, but I did like the game overall, and I saw what the director and what the team was trying to do, and that was what was important. Now, obviously, it's a little bit lower on the list for a couple of reasons. Yes, some of the mechanics and some of the gameplay are a little outdated. Now, while they did add some new ripples and little things here and there, it wasn't enough. It wasn't as much as Crash, but it wasn't obviously completely non-existent. But it just needs a lot more. They need to really reinvent some of the gameplay and some of the things that they're trying to do. If going forward, if they're obviously going to make a Part 3, I'm assuming they are. It's just so funny to me that everybody talks about how this was an Abby story, or it's just funny to me how everybody was talking about how this isn't Ellie's story, but it very much is about Ellie's story. It's about Ellie's story, and it's about comparing it to another individual who obviously, yes, was well received by half of the fans and absolutely just hated vitriolly by the other half of the fans. And it's kind of sad that it wound up tearing us apart like it did. It very is reminiscent of The Last Jedi for sure, which, believe it or not, I love The Last Jedi, and I can argue my points, but it doesn't fucking matter. It's my opinion. It is what it is. You're not going to be able to convince me any more than I'm going to be able to convince you. I'll give you my opinions. I'll give you my thoughts, and if it changes your mind, great, but I'm not trying to force a change on you, and you shouldn't try to force a change on me. Now, like I said, if they can clean up a few of the issues that they had, if they would have been able to add multiplayer, I get they wanted to focus on the single player, and the single player to me was really, really, really good. But if they could have added a multiplayer to the game, even if it was later on, even if it was like 6 months later or something along the lines of that, we're able to go ahead and put it on, like Ghost of Tsushima did, then I feel like the game might have been able to get a bump up for me. But for now, obviously, with the lack of, a factions mode, which was obviously so beloved in the first game, and the fact that, obviously, like I said, some of the gameplay and mechanics weren't nearly as up to snuff. They didn't push it enough. They wanted to focus on the story. That's great. They wanted to focus on some of the collectibles and other stuff. Fine. They wanted to focus on the game design. Wonderful. These things were all things that evolved, I felt like, from the first game. But obviously, the gunplay and most of the gameplay mechanics just weren't evolved enough to be able to push it up into like the top 5 or higher.
NumberSeven.
NumberSeven is actually a Microsoft exclusive, believe it or not. There were a couple of games from Microsoft in the 2019 list as well, but this one I think is the only one. Yes, sort of. And that is Ori and the Will of the Wisps. Now, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, I'm just going to shorten to Ori, or I can shorten to Wisps. I don't know, I'll figure it out as I go along. Obviously, the first Ori was a pretty damn good game overall. Now, it didn't try to push the boundaries too much. It wanted to kind of tell its story and to really get the characters, started, to begin, to get a beginning. Now, the second game evolved a lot of those things entirely. I really like this game a lot. The only reason why it's not high up on my list, because it's actually a solid, 8. I'd say it's probably about a 9 out of 10 as of right now. The only reason why it's not higher up on my list is because when it first released, it was very buggy. And now the first game wasn't nearly as buggy and didn't have as many issues. This one's, it really needed a couple more months to cook in the oven, and I think it would have been perfect. But I can't forget that, and a lot of people I don't think are going to forget that. But if you do have Xbox Game Pass, or if you have, what is it, I think like $20, $30, it's worth worth getting for sure, and checking out, I think. And I can't wait to actually see what the team does if they do wind up making a third game or whatever they wind up doing down the line. I'm excited to see, because I felt like this game was really, really well done, and I felt like it didn't get nearly as much love and attention as it deserved.
NumberSix.
NumberSix. Now this is the one example of a good remake. So on my most hated list, I ragged on some remakes for being really bad. This was actually a really good one, and I'm pretty sure you can figure out what that is, and that's Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 remake. Now, I forgot how much I loved these games, but was recently reminded as I went ahead and I picked up the game a bit later, obviously, and I didn't get to do much of a review for it, but I can safely say that they did a fantastic job with this game, and actually such a good job, and it got so much, love from the fans, and obviously the fans have been asking for a sequel for so long. If I do remember straight, they actually announced that they did get greenlit for a sequel finally, so can't wait to actually see about that. But yeah, the game is just really well done. It's actually how a remake should be done. They went ahead and they tore it to the studs, and they went ahead and they rebuilt it up, and everything looks and plays so smooth. It feels like it was a game that was released for the first time ever this year. Well, last year. And I can't help but praise it. Now, obviously, it's a remake, and it didn't sit there and fully evolve the game. It didn't have to. So, and that's the only reason why it's not higher on the list. While, for instance, Resident Evil 2, it shifted some things, and, it added but also removed some things and kind of did its own thing. So that way, even though it was mostly still the same game and the same story, it did change in some very radical ways. Even the gameplay, obviously, going from the weird camera angles where you can't see around corners to then going over the shoulder and succeeding, involving Mr. X, so on and so forth. That's the reason why that game was a 10 out of 10 and was so high on my list for 2019. But this game is still really, really good. And if you've got the $30-40, or if you get a sale where you can get it for $20, pick it up. It's worth it.
NumberFive.
Now, NumberFive, this one was hard. And the main reason why was because I didn't get enough time to play it to sit there and really have it shifted up further up on my list. And that's a crying shame, because I felt like it was a really damn good game. And that game was Hades. Now, a lot of people are out there petitioning and fighting for Hades to have some kind of a Game of the Year award for 2020. And, I can see it. I can understand it. From what I've heard and what I've seen, it's an amazing game. It's a fantastic game. Great art style, great music and sound design, wonderful characters, and just an addictive gameplay. It's just got a great game loop as a whole. I really liked the game, but I had so little time with it, having to play it on my PC, as I don't have a Switch, which is sad. I know. Hopefully, maybe I'll get that remedied sooner rather than later, but with the lack of a Switch, I haven't been able to play it on the move, and, and that disheartens me, but I've got it on PC, but my PC's at home, and obviously that's not where I'm at. So, hopefully I'll get some more time to play with it, but that's the only reason why it's not further up on this list, in my opinion. It's just because I just didn't have enough time to really dive into it and really get a good feel for it. But like I said, with as much as I did get to play and as much as I have seen, it deserves to be on the list, and it deserves to be pretty high on the list. It has definitely earned its spot as number 5.
NumberFour.
NumberFour. Now this is where we start to kind of get into the nitty-gritty, the hard choices. And this one was hard only because I do believe it does deserve to be just a little higher up. But of course it came out in a year in which it was competing against some really, really tough competition. But that game is Yakuza Like a Dragon. I praise Yakuza series as a whole. I praise it for its gameplay, I praise it for its story, its characters, its side quests, everything. Pretty much every game is like an 8 or 9 out of 10, hands down. There's even a couple games that they've gotten so close to getting a 10 out of 10 for me, and this is one of them, by the way. Now, the only reason why I would say it didn't get a 10 out of 10 for me, and the only reason why it isn't just a little bit higher on the list, is because they decided to change up the gameplay. And it's not bad, by the way. They went from a more freestyle, 4 different, kind of trees or whatever, like fighting style, free-flowing kind of style, a beat-em-up, It went from being a beat-em-up to being more of a turn-based combat. And that's not a bad thing, by the way. They actually fucking killed it. And consider the fact that they haven't done their game like that before, I feel like they did a great job. Hell, a lot of people gave it Persona 5, accolades and vibes, saying it was like Persona 5 with the Yakuza skin. And that's high praise. However, the fact is even though that is extremely high praise, the reality is I want to see the team continue to differentiate itself, to be maybe talked about like that, but to kind of get away from it just being a Persona 5 clone to being, a Yakuza standalone thing. And, and that's nothing against them. There's nothing wrong with that. Taking, obviously some liberties and inspiration from a fantastic game, a game people praise over and over again. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with this game. There's, a new set of characters, which is always something to be feared, as a lot of studios, they get in, they when you take a franchise, let me start over, when you take a franchise that has 7 games with one character, Kiryu, who was an amazing character, added so much depth, and just put so much love into his character over these 7 fucking games. And then to just start over with a brand new cast. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of callbacks, there's a lot of shout-outs, there's a lot of Easter eggs to the old Yakuza games. You're dancing on a thin line when you're introducing new characters. And yet, I feel like they tap danced all over that bitch. And they did a great job. The team should be proud of what they did. I think this game is amazing. It's totally underrated. I don't feel like it was nearly on enough lists, top lists at all, for everything that it did right. And so I feel like this is at least a shout out to them, and I can't wait to see what you guys do next. And and I can't wait to see, what you guys can keep bringing to the table and keep evolving with your games, because with each game you guys do such a great job taking the things that you did right and not being satisfied with it, continuing to just crank it up and show that you can do more. Kudos to you guys.
NumberThree.
Now, NumberThree. Now, I'm not gonna lie, these last 3 games, these were not so much flawless games as much as they were just games that really defied their genres this year. And I know I might be too nice with the 10 out of 10s, and honestly, everybody, kiss my ass. When I define something as a 10 out of 10, I will repeat this over and over and over again. But if I define something as a 10 out of 10, it's not because it's a flawless game or perfect game, but because it's a game that helps define its genre or creates a new genre entirely. And this is a game that kind of created its own genre. It's a mashup of several genres mixed into one, but it's still one of my favorite games of the year, and that is Deep Rock Galactic. Now, Deep Rock Galactic, I made a review for, and there will be a link down below, but I have nothing but fawning praise for this game. It's a game that reminds me of Aliens, which is one of my favorite fucking movies of all time, and it adds all these great things. You're dwarves mining for minerals while fighting back some fucking aliens. It's like Starship Troopers, Aliens, and, I don't know, Lord of the Rings fucking had a baby, and that's what you get. Okay? It's got me at work yelling things like, "For Rock and Stone!" Or, "For Carl!" And I can't sit there and praise this game enough. Now, granted, the game technically came out in 2018, but it was officially released in, I believe it was May of 2020. And with that, I just felt like the game it shows you what a live service should and could be, right? They easily could sit there and phone it in. They easily could sit there and, and just shove out all kinds of paid microtransactions and totally ignore the gameplay and the features and all the stuff that that so many other companies do. I'm fucking looking at you, EA and Activision. But instead, this, 30, 40-man team instead has, really focused and shown how much love and passion that they have in the game. They've got so many references and so many, great moments throughout their game, and they're constantly adding new stuff. They just added a huge update, Update 33, which added 2 new biomes, went ahead and did a bunch of new tweaks and stuff like that, added 4 or 5 new creatures to sit there and fight up against, went and redid some different game modes and stuff like that and kind of sharpened them up and evolved them in meaningful ways. This team deserves all the praise, and the only reason why this one isn't up higher is because the other 2 games just have so much more depth. They've got characters and stories, and this game, that doesn't mean that this game is, obviously bad. It's obviously top 3 my top 10 best games. But it's just these last 2 games, you'll understand. I'm pretty sure you guys can figure it out. But obviously, if you haven't had an opportunity to play this game, go do it. It's on Xbox Game Pass for free. The Windows version I've heard has had some issues. I'm not sure if I can confirm or deny that. I don't play it there. I play it on my Xbox with my buddy. It's an amazing game. It's so much fun. There's so much depth. And like I said, they're always adding more and more content to it. I can't wait to see what updates they've got coming up. I know that they've kind of did a smaller roadmap at the beginning of the year, kind of detailing ideas of what they have for their, for the roadmap and, and what they want to do for their different updates and stuff like that. But obviously, I'm still excited to see what they wind up coming out with each one. 2021's going to be fantastic with this game. I can't fucking wait.
Number 2.
So number 2. Now these 2, and I'm sure you guys can figure out which 2 they are, really could have been interchangeable. Both fucking amazing games. We were blessed with these 2 games this year. And it's funny because one could have potentially been a Microsoft exclusive. The game being released before Microsoft bought them out kind of put a damper on that. But obviously, this is the game that I feel like, while it still has so many great things, I feel like this game is the number 2 one for me, and that is Doom Eternal. Now, Doom Eternal is fucking amazing. It's a game fueled by apparently Red Bull and heavy fucking metal, as you're just fucking adrenaline hyped up as you're just slaying through every demon you can fucking get your peepers on. And Doom Eternal took the one issue I had with Doom 2016, and that was the repetitive, like, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, which was the only issue I had with that entire fucking game, and decided to say, we got you, fool. And instead made multiple levels and multiple locations to be able to explore and have a semi-open world, like little locations and areas to sit there and explore, find all the fucking hidden goodies, upgrades, everything. This game is so damn good. Even the fucking map design. Well, I mean, obviously the map design, but the map you can pop up and actually see where you're at is actually really good. They put a lot of love and detail into it. If anybody can sit there and take anything away, do maps like this, please. I beg you. No, seriously, this game is just so damn good. The combat's great. The level design's great. Gameplay is great. Everything's fucking great. It took everything that was done really fucking well in 2016, cranked it up to 12, and then added replaced or refurbished everything that was just so-so or wasn't good, and cranked it up, put it up at the same level with everything else. And what you have is an amazing fucking game. I can't praise enough. I've got a video down below. You should check it out. I fawned over this game, and for good reason. And then to add, the Ancient Gods Part 1, it's just a great game. And then obviously adding the battle mode. Now, there were some people that didn't like it as much. There were some people who really did like it, like the idea, the concept, but the fact that they continue adding more stuff. Hell, it's technically a fucking live service game too, because they got a game pass, a battle pass, which if you just play the game, you just earn free stuff. From skins, to and banners and all kinds of other stuff, all kinds of like goodies and stuff like that just for playing the game, whether it's playing the multiplayer mode or playing the single player mode. The game is amazing, okay? It's fantastic. If you haven't gotten a chance to play it, go fucking play the game. I don't know what you're doing here.
Number 1.
And obviously, that leads us to number 1. And of course, number 1, as you can guess it, is Ghost of Tsushima. Now this game, holy hell. I made a like 42 something minute video that will be linked down below, just gushing about this game. And that didn't even leave me opportunity because I wound up releasing the video in like October or something like that. Didn't even give me an opportunity to sit there and actually test out the multiplayer mode, which, by the way, is fantastic. It has as much depth as a full price game, and it was a free add-on. I'm just floored by the love and care that Sucker Punch put in this. Now, like I said in that review, Sucker Punch had a few games come out that I actually really, really enjoyed. I really, really liked. However, this was the one that showed that they could crank it up. They could take it to that next level and be an iconic studio. Ghost of Tsushima is a legendary game. I'm a huge sucker for samurai and, you know, old Japanese style games, and this fucking this game has it all, and it's in spades. Okay, it's got a great open world design. It's got great mission design. It's got great gameplay. You know, addicting gameplay. You know, it's got so many challenges. You know, it's, you know, added so many things after release too. Whether it was in the form of, you know, more customizations, new game plus, stuff like that. The game is amazing. It's worth it. This is, and to think that this was like the game that Sony got to go out on with the PlayStation 4. Hot damn. And then looking back at all the other games that were, you know, out as well, you know, that come out over the years, from God of War, you know, Uncharted 4, so on and so forth. So many great, Bloodborne, so many amazing games. And yet this one still stands above all of them. Sucker Punch, you know, like I said, really brought it with this game, and they should be proud of themselves. This game is fucking amazing, and I love it so much. And honestly, right now, if my brother wasn't fucking borrowing it, I'd probably be playing that. You know, if you don't have this game, you should pick it up. It's worth every penny, even at full price. You're gonna have so much content. You're gonna have content for fucking days. Okay, I mean, to complete everything would probably take you about 60 to 70 hours. You know, and I mean everything. I'm not talking about the main story. The main story is probably about 30-ish hours, 30, 35 hours. But to do everything, yeah, probably about 60 to 70 hours. And that's not even including, like I said, the multiplayer mode, which has its own storylines and its own raid and boss battles and all kinds of stuff to unlock and to do. You've got your 4 classes to unlock all this stuff for. I mean, there's so much depth here. And it, like I said, and for a full $60, it's totally worth it. The game definitely feels like 2 games in one. It's worth the price. And if you haven't had an opportunity to check it out, and you do have a Sony, you know, if you do have a PlayStation 4, you should check it out. Shame on you for not doing it sooner. Alright guys, that's it for me. That was my top 10 list. Now I know that there are some games I'll actually give some small shout outs to. Now I usually do it at the beginning, but I'll do it here toward the end. Games like Animal Crossing, I'm sorry, wasn't on the list. I don't have a Switch. If somebody wants to fix that, I'll gladly, obviously I'll make a huge shout out. I'll do whatever you want. But, but I mean, I don't have a Switch, you know, so obviously, you know, that's been a big issue the last few years, where there's been some amazing Switch games that just haven't had an opportunity to fucking play. And I hate that. I do hate that. And I want to remedy that. I do. I actually really like Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, and obviously you can kind of tie that in with Warzone as well. I felt like that was a really solid entry, and actually I think they just had an update come out. Other games like Fall Guys and Phasmophobia were amazing, big hit games. Even Among Us, even though that technically came out in 2018 as well, had a renaissance in 2020 with people having to stay home. And obviously Twitch streamers streaming it helped get it a lot of love and attention that it deserved. And so all these games, even though they were on the list, were amazing games. And if you've got, you know, a little extra money, or if you're looking for something to play, you should go pick those up as well. If you already have these games on the list. And I can't think, I'm sure there's probably 1 or 2 other games I'm missing or I'm not thinking about, but those are definitely the main ones that obviously they didn't make the list, but it's not on anything or anyone other than the fact that I just felt like the games that I listed were just a little bit better, or I just had an opportunity to play those games unlike those other ones. So anyways, what did you guys think? What are some of your guys' top games of 2020? Let me know down below, and as always, stay tuned, and I will see you guys on the next On The Shelf. Bye, guys.